Good evening, my friends, and welcome to Kardec Radio once again. As you know, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we are here for our weekly program, Spiritism, a Closer Look. By the way, if you don't know, if you haven't noticed yet, Kardec Radio has completed 10 years earlier this year. So, wow, what an accomplishment. Beautiful. So here we are, Spiritism, a Closer Look. Tonight, we are going to take a closer look at the following topic: learning to detach. Oh, learning to detach. What a challenge for a lot of us. And I'm going to bring some help, somebody who can actually, make us make us think about this and put a reflection together with all of us here. And here she is, Vanessa Anseloni. Vanessa, how are you? Your sound is off.
Sorry.
Oh, here we go.
Good. It's good to be here, Luis. It's wonderful to be here together again.
Yeah, beautiful. For those who don't know, Vanessa is the actually the founder and the Kardec Radio program, and like I said, 10 years, just unbelievable. What a trajectory to get here, right?
Yeah. Almost 11. Almost.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
My
Even
gosh.
better.
Yeah, we're like 3 months away. 4 months away. Yeah.
Oh my. Okay, so Vanessa, learning to detach. It's something. Is it hard? It's impossible. It's just difficult. What can you say?
Well, we would say it's just, I would say first, it's a common thing for us on Earth, right, Luis?
Mhm.
On Earth, we realize that we're still very attached, and people think that attachment is only about material things, but it's about, for example, our name, like, oh, you're from this family, right?
Yeah,
Right?
tradition.
Like, oh, you're the Clintons, oh, you're the Bush, you're, I'm not going to say the Trumps, but
Well, for that matter, I'm the Lima. Okay.
there you go. So we are so attached. And I see people, for example, family wise, we're attached to our families. And people think, but shouldn't we love our families? Yeah, but not be attached. But we are. And then, for example, when people in some cultures, I'm going to say across every culture, but for example, in some cultures, if you get married to somebody, that person becomes an aggregated person, which is very
Very
strange.
strange. Yeah, yeah, very.
Right? So it
Yeah.
shows our attachments. We feel like, and I hear even people saying to their kids, I've seen that. People who know of Spiritism, not necessarily they are Spiritists, but they say, we're from the same blood. What does that mean? I mean, we're from the same blood, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think you said the right thing. Across different cultures, we have a lot of that, and sometimes we catch ourselves saying things like, "Well, because I learned with my grandmother or something, or my grandparents." When they died, we were so young and kids. How can you be so attached to that? So the thing is still lingering, and yeah, some habits and like you said, not only material possessions, but the habits and attitudes, and sometimes it really doesn't make sense anymore for us because if you're attached to something in the past, you're not going forward as you should.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you talk about family. Of course, we're not discouraging people not to value their families and the lessons they learned. It's very important for us to value the families, the relationships, the learning experiences, as long as we don't make those experiences more important than anybody else, because then you are attached
Mhm.
egotistically. So then it's part of our personality, which is passing. Because, for example, in the books, the novels that Emmanuel wrote through Chico Xavier from 2,000 years ago to 50 years later, Hail Christ, Renunciation, Paul and Stephen, in many of them, for example, the first two, he shows how in less than a century, some people went from building one personality to another personality, different names, different family members, and yet some features are the same. So we are often caught up into this, the personality we create, to the point that people say with a lot of pride, oh, I am an angry person, meaning I'm not going to change. That's who I am. And actually, no, we are here to change that. That's why we're here.
That's the goal, right?
That's the goal. But many people don't know. And even if they know, they don't know how. So that's why we're here to have a closer look at those issues, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of these things, cultural habits. They usually, they're lighthearters. It's difficult to get rid of them, and that goes for centuries and centuries. Uh, if we look at every culture, for example, we are Brazilians. We were born in Brazil. If you look back into the history of the country, we still do a lot of things that we were doing 300 years ago, 400 years ago. So, and it's the same for every country, for every culture. And I think what we need to do is invest in knowledge that explains with reason why I should detach. Knowing why is different than just following what somebody said. And the knowing, the knowledge is out there. Spiritism is a primary source of knowledge of that nature. And you see a lot of people read it, they get acquainted what Spiritism is, but it doesn't really get into their hearts. So you kind of are fond of it, but it's not really something that you live through your life. But it's a source of, how and why we should do it.
And Louis, as you're saying that, for example, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 3, we're going to talk about detachment. And it's interesting when the good spirits, they come to us and they explain, and Kardec shares the knowledge in the book, that the attachment that we have is going to impact our status and our state in the afterlife. He says that sensations, perceptions will vary a lot, from one state to another. So it's important to assess at this point, how attached am I? And to be very practical, like Joana de Angelis says in the book Happy Life, she says to us, every day, let's take a closer look at death. Think about it. One day you won't be here. Your loved ones won't be here. And how is that going to go for you? Because how often we're attached, for example, to a pen. I've seen people attached to pens.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is my pen. You're not going to use my pen. You're not going to use my cup. I see families with people who, like children, they come and, can I use your cup? No, that's my cup. You can use my cup. So it's like my chair. You don't sit on my chair because that's my chair. And then in the long run, we think, oh, if you talk to the person's going to say, oh, no, I just mean because it's my privacy. Yeah, but share it. Our guided model, Jesus, was never attached to anything. We've never heard that Jesus said, this is my seat.
Yeah.
right? It's funny to think that he was the Messiah. Sometimes I ponder, oh my gosh, he was the Messiah. Many people were treating him like celebrity status amongst the people who recognize him, right? Like,
Mhm.
wow, he's a big deal. But then immediately he would frustrate all expectations
Yeah.
because he wouldn't behave in the way people were expecting, that there would be privileges,
Right.
that there would be separation, that there would be discrimination. Jesus was never like this. There was not a thing he said, oh, this was Jesus' bed. This was Jesus' seat. This was Jesus' favorite tree. Nobody would pray under that tree because it was Jesus' tree. We've never heard of this.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. The thing that you brought about, this is my pen, this is my plate, whatever it is, my cup. This makes us be very territorial, which is something of spirits that are struggling to advance usually have to deal with that. But it's all of us. That's the we are on the right planet because that's what we need. And yes, this is out there because that's what we need to overcome. If you need to overcome something, it's going to be in front of you. Otherwise, you can't overcome. So yeah, that's a difficult thing. We are very attached. We are still very territorial, per se. Yeah.
And it reminds me of this moment we're living on Earth. Still, during the pandemic,
Mhm.
a new variant is coming along. It's like, it's natural, right? Variants will come and go, come and go. But so many lives changed. Not only those who discarnated, but
Mhm.
those who stayed and those family members are no longer here. Their lives changed. And the main question is, hasn't it been enough for us to feel the change? What else do we need today, Luis? In the book Our Daily Bread, I was praying with Carlos, and we opened a message, and I forgot the chapter, but it relies on a verse from John in the New Testament, and Emmanuel elaborates more on that, and he says that the good spirits have not organized themselves to send messages after messages, and they tell the more we progress on earth, the more the interaction between two worlds becomes easier.
Mhm.
And they say, but the spirits are not coming to tell us what we don't know. They are coming to remind us of what we know. And the
Already.
last statement, but either we refuse to follow through or we simply forget. So, this shake up that we're living on earth, 2 years or more, is a statement in terms of attachment,
Yes.
right? I've heard people who the great resignation is happening, I guess because people are like also pondering what's important for them. If they had jobs that were not meaningful, maybe they're gravitating to, I don't know. But also great retirement, they say. Many, at least in the US, they say more than 2 million people, 2.6 million people retired earlier than expected. They call it the great retirement too. Probably people who are realizing like what is priority in life. So we're being optimistic here, right?
Yeah.
We're being
Yeah. Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah. That's true. I think if we go back to the beginning of creation, we don't want to go that far back, but we know of the intelligent principle and the material principle. And anything material, anything that comes from the material principle, is not an end. It's just a tool. It's just a means for the intelligent principle to use in its own favor and evolve. It's just a tool. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but what I see here today on Earth, not as spiritist, but in general on Earth, is people think that material possessions is a goal. It's the final goal. It's a destination. It's the end, and it's far from this, because it's not. Just like you said, there's a attachment to culture and there's attachment to material things, material goods, and I think we're living through times in this past, I would say, 20, 30 years, where it's almost like mandatory, if you will, to have the latest gadget, the latest electronic thing, the latest advanced technology, the latest everything. And that not necessarily is going to bring any happiness, because happiness is not formed with molecules and atoms. It's not part of the material principle. So, I think that's a lot of the problem lies in there, the perception of humanity about it.
I love what you're saying because today I was meeting with friends discussing the lesson plan for the teens in our center, and they are studying no solar, the book, Our Home by Andrea Lewis through the medium Chico Xavier. And it's so interesting because in chapter 5, as Andrea Lewis, who was a doctor, physician, and to the world, to his country, he was a good person, a good father, a good professional. He dies of cancer. He gets himself in the spiritual realm in a bad situation. And then he's rescued. He goes to the spiritual hospital. And there he is talking to one of the workers, Lysias. And he's explaining to him that the main problems in our lives are because, two, we have our moral indiscretions, and now, precisely what you said, we want to enjoy life more than others. Enjoy life. And you're saying exactly that. People who are not satisfied with what they have, they want more. So, a new phone. I know it's the capitalistic push, and we understand it's just progress. We're not going to complain. We're not going to be on a standstill. No, we have to progress. But when people ask me, Vanessa, when should I change the phone? Well, you changed the phone, one, when you lost your phone. That happened to
Yeah,
me
that's
last
true.
year. That's one. Two, when it's not working well. I remember one day 2 years ago,
Yeah,
I couldn't receive messages anymore because it wasn't processing. I said, okay, time for a new phone. But you don't go like many people I've heard. A new phone is up and they're just changing. Just because it's the new, have to have the latest.
right. Yeah,
No. And the other thing, for example, I was in passing by a mall months ago when they released, what is this name of the new brand of a car? I forgot the name of this car. You're a guy, you may know better than me. But I saw they were displaying this new car. It's a new Lucid. Is that what it is? Lucid?
it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, Virginia was with me. We were there because of her friends. We had to do something. And I said, okay, I'm just curious. So I talked to the guy. I said, how much is the car? $77,000. Okay. So then I asked, what's the big deal about this car? Because I'm not seeing it. And he said, oh, you can drive X, X hundreds of miles. And I said, well, so this car is not for the streets, right? It's a race car. He said, no, 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 it's for the streets. I said, I can't have a car like this. I can't because I take my daughter to school. What's the purpose if I'm just going to drive her to school? Yeah, he said, you're right. It's not for you. I said, no, it's not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah, if the streets are limited to 35 or 45 miles an hour.
So why do I need, if the maximum speed, even in the highways in the US,
That's right.
is what? 60,
Yeah, 65, 70. Yeah,
65, 70. So why do you need a car that is 100 and I don't know how many miles? He said, yeah, yeah. Oh, but the performance. And I said, but why do I need a car like this? Because if I use it for transportation, to go from point A to point B, why do I need to have a race car in the middle of the streets? So then you're pushing people to really go beyond the rules.
right.
And it's just creating illusions.
Yeah, another way that I would put this thing is at the stage that we are, there's predominance of matter over spirit. We are
Yes,
not yet
yes,
on the other side, which is predominance of the spirit over matter. Predominance of matter over spirit means anything material takes precedence. So when we are bombarded with marketing campaigns to buy this or that and the latest gadget, the latest car, like you said, and so we, we settle for it. We kind of, surrender to the impact of these campaigns, and we go there and we spend the money and buy it. And a lot of times, later on, you realize it wasn't really necessary to have that, and it was just money that was spent, you know, not really wisely. But I think that's why marketing, the way it's done today, I'm not saying marketing is a bad thing, but the way it's done today, these massive campaigns, almost like bullying style,
hmm,
they will get most of us because we are still, accepting predominance of matter over spirit. We have not yet mastered predominance of the spirit over matter.
yes. And
But
and it's a practice of everyday life, right?
yeah,
How do we practice? Some people ask me, how do I practice it? Every day we wake up, and like I tell my daughter every day when I wake her up, I say, Spirit Virginia, come back to the warm body. That's how it feels. God is so good that when you come back from the spiritual realm into the physical body, and I say, you just get back to the body after sleeping. God is so good. It's like a nest. It's so warm.
right.
Everything's so cozy you don't want to wake up.
That's right. That's right.
But
But
then you wake up and you say, oh, it's so good. This body is so comfortable. And even in this chapter 5 of the book, Our Home, Andrea Luiz learns from Lysias when he says, let us bless the cells, the trillions of cells in our physical body without which we cannot evolve. But then what do we do? As you're saying, we incite vices, addictions,
mhm,
and we incite this personal interest. And in the Spirit's book by Kardec, when Kardec posed a question to the spirits of all imperfections and vices, what is the greatest sign of our imperfection? And they say, personal interest. Personal interest.
that's
They
right.
say that it's the, and in the answer they say, it's the attachment to material things that are clear sign of our inferiority.
Yeah.
Because the more attached we are to the things, the less we understand our very destiny.
Mhm.
And where are we going to go? If I'm sometimes mesmerized that people have seen friends passing away with COVID, family members passing away,
Yeah.
and yet nothing changed to so many of them.
Yeah.
Because I remember when my father passed away, he was the closest relative. during these 2 years that passed away, not due to COVID, but it was during COVID. I always thought about death every day, but when I saw my dad passing away, for me, it was like in my face saying, yes, I never doubted that death exists, but it's clearer than ever that it exists. One day, the door shuts,
Yeah.
and you may have homes, lands, money, company, everything. He can't say a word to whom it's going to go. Of course, in his case, he had a living will, but even though people will fulfill your will and you hope, you cross your fingers that it will, what if it doesn't? So you can't get attached because one day the car is yours. I remember in my father's case, he has his car, my mom has her car. He always drove his car, my mom drove her car. I've
Mhm.
never seen my mom driving his car, and now she drives his car. Of course, he wouldn't be upset at all, but I'm just saying it's funny how things change
Yeah.
and they pass, and you live with those conditionings and standards, and when you least expect, you're gone. So, just out of practice, Luis, every time I see my husband and my daughter sleeping before me, I look at them and I think, whoa, what if they were dead now? How would I feel? Am I doing the right thing? When I go to sleep, I think this could be it.
Yeah.
When I leave my house, for example, to walk the dog, I remember Mentor Joseph saying to me, pretend that you're never going to be able to go back to your house. How would you feel?
Yeah.
What is unfinished? And I said many things. I need to give Kardec Radio's passwords to many people before I go.
But that's exactly what it is. The goal of us being here right now, you and I, and the audience, is for us to reflect upon these little things that sometimes we don't want to look at them because it's a little bit discomfort. It causes discomfort. Sometimes it's just you know uh, I'm not connected to these things. But yeah, those are the primary things in life, and anything else comes after that. So it's hard to detach. Absolutely.
But Louis, do you think people would feel it is somewhat um, depressing to think this way?
Well, some people, uh, uh, they you see, depression is of course very personal, but it it's almost collective, because if you are that kind of person, you tend to be with friends and people that follow the same line of thought. So one feeds the other. So when something like this comes, or a reflection like the one we're talking about comes into one of those people, it goes to all the others. So, and they are usually, I don't want to think about it, and they take away the chance of the other people in the group to think about it, because they all have the same line of thoughts, and it's difficult. So the change starts by, you know getting away from these things, going to places, stretching the mile, and going away to other places that will give you a different insight, something different than the usual. It's like very much, we could say an analogy, like you watch the news every day. You don't, one day you say, I don't want to watch war anymore. You get out of that station or that kind of news and you go watch something else. That's a walk away. That's the walk away that I'm talking about. So sometimes, yeah, it's necessary to break habits by, leaving things behind, and things might include people, unfortunately.
And it's interesting when you say that because in that very message by Emmanuel, he says that when we want to renew ourselves, we'll find obstacles.
Oh, yeah.
It's the power of conditioning. It's hard to change because it's about conditioning. God made us in such a way that when we learn something, we stick to it, and then we have to make effort. You know, in the book Evolution into Worlds, one of the main messages by Andre Lewis is effort and repetition. We don't evolve without making effort. And that's where many people are mistaken because they think, oh, it's so hard, so it's not for me. No, 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 no. Keep going. Oh,
Yeah.
painting is not for me. Well, it's like kids, they come home, they want to do homework, and they're like, oh, math is not for me. Okay, what do you know about math to say it's not for you?
Yeah.
Right? So keep going, keep going. It's like going to the gym. Many people want to lose weight, they want to be fit. They go one day and they're like, yeah, but it's so hard. I'm so tired. But if you keep pushing, 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 you create a new habit, and then your body's going to ask. That's the beauty of it all. God helps us when we create a habit, then it becomes second nature. If we choose good things, great. But if we choose things that are unhealthy, we need a lot of help because we're never alone. Since we're spiritists here, we have to talk about like sometimes detaching is hard because we're not alone in those attachments.
Right.
There is a crowd on the other side besides here. There's a crowd on the other side that is not going to allow you to just go away and walk away, as you said. They want you to stay there, connected. So the book Action and Reaction, you remember when Andre Lewis tells a case of this man who is truly obsessed. He's in his house, he's reading the news all the time, he's not paying attention to his family, he's not even working in his farm. And they see that on the other side of life, there is a plot created by
Mhm.
his very uncles.
Right.
So his name is Louis. His father was Antonio. His father had two brothers. He killed his two brothers to keep the inheritance only for him, the very farm. The father later died. We'll tell the circumstances in the book. But his son stays, he's married, he has a child, and now he's completely, let's say scientifically, mentally ill.
Mhm.
And what is on the behind the scenes? Dozens of spirits who are there to keep him in this hypnotic state where he doesn't see that he's losing his farm, that he's not making any progress. He's just in the illusion of money without actually taking any action. So sometimes it's not hard to let go because we're not alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad influences, especially at the level that we are and the planet that we are in. And the planet that we are in is the right planet for us, as we know.
No
Spiritism
doubt.
explains that very easily. That's what I like about when Allan Kardec writes. He goes straight to the point. Everything for him is black and white. There's no,
Yeah,
circumvent. Let me walk around here. Let me use these nice words. No,
yeah,
it's very impacting because of the way he puts the thing out, and it makes us learn. It makes it, if we're really into it, it makes us stop at every paragraph and say, "Oh, hold on, I gotta, put my brain to think a little bit here." And that's what I like so much about Spiritism. And by the way, the goal of Spiritism is improvement of mankind, of
yeah,
humankind. So
yeah,
Spiritism is here to help, not to
yeah.
tell us you're wrong, you're doing wrong. And it doesn't do any of that. It doesn't judge anything. It's just a tool for us to use if we want to use, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're right.
All right, Vanessa. Well, thank you so much. I just want to thank our one of our viewers, Alexander, is in Brazil. So may God accept you and everyone. Fraternal hug for you too, Alexander.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for participating. And you in the audience, if you're watching us live, thank you so much. And Vanessa, final words, please.
I would
One
like
last
to,
thought.
life is so short in an incarnation. It is not the life as a spirit, but this reincarnation passes so fast. When we realize we're here, it's time to go back. And we never know when the ticket back home to the spiritual realm is actually, you know, gonna come. All we know is what we take with us. So, what do we take with us when we travel back to the spiritual home? Which is a joy. When I see people dying out of circumstances that are not pushed by themselves, of course, we're not talking about suicide. We say, great, they graduated. Now they are going to readapt and prepare for a new moment in their lives. But we are still here. Those who stay, they have to continue going to school on the earth. And not that they don't, but they are going to prepare for a new grade. We are here in this very grade. And what do we need to learn? From what we understand, it's clear in the Spiritist literature that we need to learn to be spirits living on earth. What does that mean? I'm not going to look at people as if they are the color of their skin, the money they have in the pocket or in the bank account, the car that they drive, the clothes that they wear, etc., etc. I'm going to look at them in the eyes and see a child of God just like me. When I turn my relationships into that soul to soul interaction, then I will take the most of this life. Then I will use the tools that I have in the material life, titles, assets, and even the material relationships to boost our progress, the intellectual and the moral progress. We are here to evolve, and it's not worthwhile spending time in illusions. So whenever we come into this temptation to fall into the abyss of illusions, let's remember the clock may tick now, the bell may ring at this moment. Are we ready? And I say this because sometimes we're celebrating a good time with friends and we are eating a whole lot. And we forget that if we die at that very moment, it's going to be a very difficult discarnation. So, from eating habits to the way we actually invest in our relationships. Do we actually invest in our relationships? Recently, just to wrap up, Luis, in the morning prayer, as we're studying messages from Emmanuel in the Livro de Respostas, Book of Answers, there is a chapter that really impressed me so much. Every chapter does, but that one was totally unexpected because he said, the noble spirits, the noble souls are always admirable, but those who resist the temptations of illusions in the world and keep on serving and working, they are as admirable to God as those who are already there.
Up there. Yeah.
It felt so good to me just to feel that it just takes, and I recalled Paul of Tarsus
Oh, yeah.
and Mary Magdalene. They were so admirable because they really, there is a shift, a turning point where they said, I will no longer go to the wide road. I will take steps, resist, and walk into the narrow road, which people may think it's so boring. The other day, Louis, Monday, in our mediumistic meeting at the Spirit side of Virginia, a spirit came surprisingly. He was rescued, and he said, I've always seen these illuminated spirits coming along. And I thought, they're not going to catch me. They're not going to rescue me. So he was hiding. And at some point, he said, I always thought that doing the good and being good was boring, was no fun. And then he, out of tears at some point, he says, I realize just by feeling, as I'm feeling the connection with the spirit mentors and doctors who were with him, that I was wrong. Some people think the fun only happens when you're doing wrong things, drinking and doing crazy stuff, being wild. But actually, when we surrender to the good, that's where the real fun begins.
We feel elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said something, just to wrap up, you said something that reminded me of something else, which is you were talking about what we take and what we leave. And I usually say this in lectures and talks. Uh, Humanity and people in general, there's never going to be an agreement of all the 8 billion people living here on Earth. There's always going to be a different thing. But there's only one thing that is a general consensus. It's the only thing that everybody agrees on. When we die, the car stays in the garage. When we die, the laptop stays on the table. When we die, the television stays in the living room. There's not a single person among us, the 8 billion people living on Earth right now, that will say, no, but I've seen somebody die and the car went with it. That's the only thing that is 100% consensus. So I think it's reason enough to believe that they don't go with us. They stay.
So why get attached, right?
Yeah, that's right. All right. So thank you very much, guys, for participating with us here today. As always, Spiritism A Closer Look is here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much for participating with us, and we'll see you next week.